Okay, now, last time we discussed new logistic search. This time what we're going to discuss is AI and its fundamental flaws. This has to be explained. And the reason this needs to be explained is because we live in almost a religion of automation. I have no idea why people are so dead set on automation. But one of the things that we have to realize is that there is no intelligence at all to artificial intelligence. None, okay? And what we have here is we have a problem. And the problem is context, okay? Context. And understanding. Now, understanding here is incredibly important. There is no understanding either. So when you automate something, for instance, and what you do is, let's say I put all of the data in the world, we'll call it data, and I put it into a processing system, okay? And I request of the processing artifice, okay? Artifice that is essentially a depiction of context and understanding. That still does not mean that there is any understanding, okay, at all. Now, if I insist on automating all manner of, let's say, relationship between devices and people. Let's say gatekeeping. We'll call it gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is decent. Gatekeeping. We have a real problem because basically now what happens is that this happens with no real human involvement. Human involvement. And instead, what we have is this, taking care of this, cutting off this, with very little room for error correction. Which brings us back to this, the flaws. Okay, so you say, no big deal, and I know how people are who seem to be enchanted with this stuff. They just blather on and on and on and on about how this is a holy grail and how this is possible. So let's say that maybe this is possible, that perhaps we'll entertain the idea of some form of awareness. Some form of understanding actually enters the equation, right? Some form. What's really interesting though is that this form, the science fiction story of awareness, of AI, has nothing really to do with the data, because the data has a context, which is dependent upon human involvement. So if I create an issue of data processing, I create this thing. Okay? And it actually is able to make manifest some form of awareness. Okay, what will happen, oddly enough, is that it will do things on its own terms. Terms that have yet to be created. That have nothing to do with the data. Because this awareness has no sense of context or understanding of the human involvement. This is not a human form of awareness. This is non-human, completely non-human. It knows nothing of human trivia. It knows nothing of human context. It knows nothing of why I Love Lucy is better than the Wild Wild West. It knows nothing of any of the human involvement issues that create what we could call life as we know it. And what's very interesting about this is that this will never have a relationship with life as we know it. Okay? Now, some people would like to believe that there's a form of enhancement somewhere in here. Somehow, with some human involvement, this relationship might be of some value. The problem with this is we're back to this, the automation issue. And since this is automation, and since this is intrinsic, the benefit, which is fictional, far outweighs the detriment, which is real. It's really simple. This is a fictional form of benefit, which has yet to be realized. And like those terrible experiments where they took these poor people and x-rayed their heads because they didn't know that x-rays were bad, they found that out a few years later, that basically, oh man, we made a mistake. Those poor people, we x-rayed their heads for like hours and now they're fucked up. Well, that's kind of like where we are with this idea of fictional benefit, okay? We don't really know it. We can't prove it. It's fictional, okay? However, we do know that detriment exists because of issues of real quality of life. Now, I don't want this to be negative. I don't want to say that that the idea of tool making is a bad idea. I don't want to say that some of the abilities of doing certain things better is a bad idea. I just want to say that this is a flawed concept. And unless you understand this non-human, unless you understand this and understand that the awareness issue is fundamentally fictional to begin with, and probably will remain so in the long run, it really does us no good to automate what amounts to our weapons systems, okay? So let's pretend that we're hung up on weapons systems, okay? We're hung up on weapon systems and finance. And these are the interests which are attempting to build and promote this. So when we get through all of this, we end up with a major detriment to real quality of life. And I think that's good enough for now. That's a decent cartoon. I mean, thank you very much.